name is Gracie. Yes, only 7 of my 10 fingers are painted. Today I'm doing my June wrap-up and my July TBR, even though I don't really have one. The first book I read in June was my 37th book of the year, and that is Vicious by V.E. Schwab, which I gave 5 stars. I read this book because I am reading 2 of one of my friends here on BookTube, Melissa's favorite books, and unfortunately I haven't gotten to the second book yet because it hasn't been available to me unless I would go to buy it, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it, so I don't want to buy it. Anyways, so that was the first book and it was so good. Like, oh my god, it's basically about these 2 boys who for their college thesis tried to make and recreate extraordinary people, and also like goes into the lives of a lot of other EOs, the extraordinaries. Even an 11 or 12-year-old named Sydney, and she's amazing and I love her, and I don't know, like, it's so good. The next book I read was an audiobook that I had been reading since like December or November, and that is Eliza Hamilton by Susan Holloway Scott, which I gave 3 stars. This is about Eliza Hamilton. If you know who that is, it's Alexander Hamilton's wife. Basically her side of their entire life, like her side of the story. And it's pretty interesting, but I think I gave it 3 stars because it was, first of all, incredibly long. Second of all, I already knew of basically everything that happened in it, so it was all old information to me, and it wasn't put together in a super like amazing, interesting way if you already knew what was happening. So 3 stars is kind of mediocre. The third book I read in June was All Out, edited by Sandra Mitchell, which is an anthology about queer teens throughout time. But I think it did a very good job, which I know a lot of the queer stories were from the 1900s, but I think that was one place where it lacked, as I really wanted to see some stories a lot farther back. But there was some like 1600s, 1700s stories, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.75 stars, and I just thought it did a really good job. I know some people think otherwise, but I was one of the first like completely queer books where like almost every character was LGBT+, and it was really good. Next book I read was Blue Lily, Lily Blue by Maggie Stiefvater, which I gave 5 stars. It was the first book out of the Raven Cycle series that I gave a complete 5 stars, because I gave Dream Thieves 4.25 and The Raven Boys 4 stars. And it was so good. If you don't know what The Raven Boys is about, it's basically about this girl named Blue who's a psychic, or she's a non-psychic in a completely psychic family, and she has a prophecy about her that if she kisses her true love, they'll die. And she sees this boy on this night where you can go and the psychics can write down everyone who is going to die within the next year. And if you're non-psychic, the only way you see them is if they're your true love, or if you're going to be the one that causes their death. So she sees Gansey, and she meets Gansey in a pizza parlor with the rest of his friends, and Gansey is looking for a Welsh king's tomb to get a wish granted. The next book I read was The Witch Doesn't Burn in This One by Amanda Lovelace, and I gave this 4.5 stars. This is a poetry collection about basically feminist poetry series. What it is, the first book is The Princess Saves Herself in this one. The second one is The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one, and I know the third one has a title, but I can't remember what it is. I really enjoy them. I'm not a huge poetry fan, so I've never really given any poetry like 5 stars, but I enjoyed it. I really loved the messages that were coming through the poetry, and yeah, Next book I read was The Case for Jamie by Brittany Cavallaro, which I ended up giving 5 stars. This is the 3rd book in the Charlotte Holmes series, a series about the great, I don't remember. I used to know how many greats there were, but the grandchildren of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, and their journey of being framed for murder and then the happenings afterward. And the 3rd book was my favorite so far. It was so good. Like, the 1st book was really good. Gave it 5 stars as well. The 2nd book I think I gave like 4 point something. It was also pretty good. But this one like blew me away. I loved it so much. There was a lot less angst than there usually is, which there was angst at the beginning, but then it got like resolved, and I enjoy some angst, but when it goes on for like 2 books, I'm kind of like, ugh. But now it's kind of resolved, and I'm very happy about that, and I think that's why I enjoyed this one so much. And I read Out of the Easy by Ruta Sepetys. If you know me at all, Ruta Sepetys is my favorite person, like author, like probably more than Tahira Mafi. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I've given her other 2 books 5 stars. I think this one is definitely my least favorite out of her 3 books. This one, it follows a girl in 1950s New Orleans in the French Quarter whose mom is a prostitute, and she's very like, basically the girl in the book lives alone because her mom is kind of like deadbeat, doesn't really do anything for her, and so she kind of gets mixed up in almost in like a little bit of a murder mystery that they're not really sure about. And it's almost a thriller which I love, like contemporaries and historical fictions that are also a little bit of a thriller, like We Are Okay, and this book, but I definitely didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Salt to the Sea and Between Shades of Grey. And next, I finally finished my audiobook of History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera, which I started at the beginning of this month, or I think the end of May, actually. I can't really remember. I only gave it 3.5 stars because it was kind of like meh for me. I liked it at the beginning, and then I kind of started to realize I didn't really like the main character. I really liked the representation in it, but it kind of fell flat for me because I feel like Griffin acted very, I don't know how to explain it, like for his boyfriend just dying, he was very like vengeful towards his ex-boyfriend who had just died, and I was like kind of shocked by that, and I didn't really enjoy that, and I don't know, the story was sad, but it wasn't super like shocking or like completely emotional to me. So I was a little disappointed by that one because I really loved They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. The last book I read in June was We're Okay by Nina LaCour, which I gave 5 stars. One of my new favorite books because it was so good. Like, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but it's about this girl named Marin who basically runs away from her town in California, goes to New York to go to college, doesn't really talk to anybody from her town, doesn't really reconnect or like say why she left or what happened. All you know is that something happened to make her leave, and that she's kind of living her life like by herself in her dorm, but her best friend who had lived there and was in college when she left, not in the same town, is coming to stay with her over Christmas break in the dorms. They reconcile their friendship, and kind of you slowly begin to figure out why she left and what happened, and you figure out her family situation, and deals with like discovering her sexuality as her and her best friend kind of had some romantic feelings. It's just like a hard-hitting contemporary that ended so beautifully, and like the whole book was super beautiful, which I loved. So I definitely very glad I read this book. I had tried to read it once before and I just wasn't getting into it, but I'm very glad I didn't make myself push through it then because I knew I would have enjoyed it less. So I think I read this as a good time in my reading journey. My July TBR is basically finish the books that you've started and read all your books for the readathons. So I'm doing biennial bibliothon starting on the 14th, which I will have a TBR for on the 13th, and then the booktubeathon on the 30th, which I think I will have a TBR for on the 27th or something like that. So I don't want to like spoil those TBRs, which I don't have one for booktubeathon yet, in case you're wondering. So I guess I'll just tell you some of the books that I'm going to try to finish, I guess. And one of those is 7 Ways We Lie, which I'm rereading. And I need to read Turtles All the Way Down for the book where Melissa and I read each other's favorite books. So I will definitely get to that this month, Melissa. I swear I will. And that's all I have for this. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to subscribe and comment if you liked this video and want to see more. Bye!